Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Nearly 7 years after a fire ripped through homes and businesses in White Rock, charges have been laid. Plus, cases of strangulation are on the rise.
People who've been strangled, primarily women, from their domestic partner are at 7 times risk of being killed by that partner in the future.
Why one BC clinic says the injury needs to be treated more seriously. And he's enthralled the hockey world, and he's right here from British Columbia.
For me, I still gotta prove myself and try to play my best and try to improve.
What the future holds for Connor Bedard.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with an update on a story we first brought you on Wednesday. A gay man in BC says he has received more hate after posting a video showing him and his partner being chased in downtown Vancouver. As the CBC's Zara Premji explains, advocates say a sudden uptick in online hate is feeling impossible to manage. And a warning, this story could be distressing for some viewers.
It was almost like, why me? Of all things, I really did feel safe, and now I'm kind of, I don't know if I still feel safe.
Jamie Pine and his partner were heading out for a night on the town last weekend in Vancouver, but moments after this photo, they were followed by a stranger on transit. They say he spewed homophobic and racial slurs at them and even chased them.
Oh my God, so much hatred.
My boyfriend just said run, and so we ran.
In a flurry of adrenaline, Pine took out his phone to try to defend himself. He hit record.
I don't want this in my country.
Get off my face.
He then posted it to social media, thinking it would help others feel like they're not alone. Instead,
The support is really great, but with all that support comes the negativity, and I've received quite a lot of that online.
online hate like this is what advocates say has forced a spike in calls for help.
People behind a keyboard feel like they can just say anything to anyone without any consequence.
Staff at this advocacy and support center say demand for their mental health support is the highest in 3 years, a 23% rise from last June to September.
We see a lot of pride all across the community and in the city during the summer months. Pride is something that needs to extend all around the year.
Pine says he wants haters to know a keyboard can't be your weapon.
The minute that they see you with somebody like another man, it could set them off. And it's really driven by the hate online and the echo chambers of people that just believe that we are not equal with them.
Pine says despite being harassed, other alleged victims of the same perpetrator have spoken up, and police say they're investigating. Advocates are also wanting transit police to be better educated about issues affecting queer community members, and to anyone feeling afraid.
In spite of this uptick in, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, there is space here for our community.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
A man is dead and a drug lab has been uncovered after a shooting in Abbotsford. Police say they were called to a home invasion with shots fired on Nicholson Avenue just after 4 this morning. When they arrived, they found a man dead. Officers searched his home and found a drug lab as well. Police say this killing appears to be targeted. His death is the second fatal shooting in the Lower Mainland in less than 24 hours. A 17-year-old boy was gunned down in Burnaby yesterday morning. Well, there are more concerns about safety on Vancouver's Granville Strip tonight after a Good Samaritan was stabbed trying to help a homeless man. The assault happened last month. It was caught on camera. Vancouver police are releasing the video now in hopes it will help them find the suspects. Police say the victim saw what he thought was 3 men trying to steal a homeless person's bag. When he tried to intervene, he was punched in the face and stabbed in the chest. The 30-year-old from New Westminster was taken to hospital with serious injuries and has since been released. A 24-year-old has been charged with arson in connection with a devastating apartment fire in the Five Corners area of White Rock nearly 7 years ago. In May of 2016, a fire quickly overtook a condo which was under construction. The fire spread to surrounding residences and businesses. According to the RCMP, the fire displaced more than 100 residents, resulting in millions of dollars in damages. 2 men were arrested in July of 2021, and police say a total of 7 charges have now been approved against Surrey resident James Adrian Dyer. comes to intimate partner violence, strangulation is known as a serious indicator of escalating abuse and even death. It's why a strangulation clinic in Surrey is offering support to survivors. The CBC's Anita Bathe reports on what's being done to address an injury which experts say has often been overlooked. And a warning, the story references physical and domestic abuse.
This room is a unique space to help with what could be a lethal situation for anyone facing violence.
They're being hit in the head, they might have concussions, they're being strangled, they might have some head and neck injuries. We needed a specialty clinic where this could be looked at and people could feel supported.
From full head and neck exams to conversations about mental health and sleep, patients get specialized care and treatment at the strangulation clinic and can describe their injuries with this.
We use a styrofoam head. Show me how he held you. 2 hands, arm lock, 1 hand up like this. It's a good way for me to know what I might be looking for or what injury might have occurred.
Experts say strangulation is a serious sign that violence is escalating.
And this gives me shivers even just saying it, is that people who've been strangled, primarily women, from their domestic partner are at 7 times risk of being killed by that partner in the future.
Fraser Health opened the clinic because of increased reports of strangulation. In a health authority research analysis of 405 intimate partner violence patients at the Surrey Memorial Hospital, strangulation happened in 55% of cases. Experts say strangulation has often been overlooked because the injuries can be invisible, whereas other violence like hits to the head and face can be more obvious.
And so what we're seeing here is when we follow up with these patients, they've got every symptom of a concussion.
And if concussions and strangulation are repetitive, researchers say there can be long-term health impacts.
It likely will lead to longer-term neurodegenerative disorders like dementia and Alzheimer's disease, or what we see in contact sport athletes.
This advocate says more resources like the strangulation clinic are needed. She's working to help train future doctors on dealing with violence.
There's very little information that's provided to physicians about intimate partner violence or injury, and so traumatic brain injury is something that we're discussing.
But it's not always easy for victims or survivors to access medical care.
It shouldn't surprise anybody that abusive partners don't want injured women to go to the hospital, actually. And if they do, they are there and very carefully observing what the partner is saying or not saying.
McDougall says it's important for victims to have a safety plan with transition homes or crisis lines. Knowledge and awareness, she says, can go a long way in treating and preventing injuries that can be lethal. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Surrey.
Now, if you or someone you know is affected by intimate partner violence, you can access support services by visiting endingviolence.org. If your situation is urgent, please contact emergency services in your area. All right, travel delays and power outages are affecting thousands of British Columbians tonight as a blast of gusty weather batters the south coast and the lower mainland. BC Ferries has issued a travel advisory. Our reporter Saurabh Sandhu has the latest from Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal.
Lots of confusion at the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal as passengers struggle to keep up with the changing ferry schedule due to the extreme weather conditions. BC Ferries has issued a travel advisory due to the strong wind gusts from 60 to 90 kilometers per hour. Already 2 sailings between Horseshoe Bay and Departure Bay have been cancelled.
I traveled from Burnaby. It wasn't that bad there, but the moment I came up on the ferry terminal side, it's really bad. I understand why they're not sailing.
Worried passengers that we spoke to tonight were looking to make emergency hotel arrangements in case their ferry sailings get cancelled. Many others were not sure if they will make it tonight or not.
It was definitely a little rough. I'm heading over for an Irish dance competition, so we were hoping things wouldn't get cancelled. And yeah, we found parking. Luckily, we got a ferry. We're looking at Tsawwassen for hotels.
There might be a chance to sit on the ray, but when we got here, they said quite a few of the sailings canceled. We might run a late one here if the weather settles down a bit.
Strong winds are also causing power outages across lower mainland with thousands of households affected, including Surrey, Langley, Richmond and Vancouver, as well as the Gulf Islands and Sunshine Coast. Environment Canada is warning the winds could be potent enough to topple trees and damage rooftops. BC Ferries is advising the passengers to check the website for latest on ferry schedules. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Suasan.
And we'll have more on those high winds in just a moment in weather. But now let's turn to a funding commitment from the province. More than $23 million is going toward helping to reduce risk from climate-related emergencies in a number of communities in the province.
Projects like risk mapping, increasing public education, purchasing monitoring equipment, and performing small-scale structural improvements.
49 First Nations and local governments will receive the funding. Some of that money is going to the Fraser Valley, where floods devastated the region in the fall of 2021.
Right here in Chilliwack, the funding will go towards designing upgrades to the Chilliwack Creek Drainage Pump Station, which serves as a critical component of the community's flood protection system.
Other details of the funding include money for a new dike on the Coldwater River in Merritt. These investments are the latest to come from the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. A new addition has opened at Sunnyside Elementary School in Surrey.
That the new seats also means that there is now space once again for childcare in the school, which will further benefit families in this neighborhood.
The 10-classroom addition costs $11 million and eliminates the need for 6 portables. The Sunnyside expansion adds 250 seats to the school. Part of the additions include sensory floors and walls, gender-neutral individual washrooms, and flexible seating classrooms. Well, a Vancouver woman is trying to reunite a bag filled with old photos with its owner. Marilyn Lemon says she was walking by her driveway where she had been gardening when she noticed a small black tote bag half buried. She picked it up and looked inside and found an old tennis racket, 2 stuffed animals, and some interesting photos.
Well, by some weird coincidence, I've been sorting through my old family photos and thinking, these are really weird. I don't know why I can't part with them. I just need to have them, you know? And it just seems like something, yeah, let's not let them get wet. I don't know. And then when I posted it on the neighborhood Facebook page, people said, oh, this is wonderful, you're doing this. We're like more than 70 replies to that post saying, oh, I hope you find the person, I hope you find them, you know?
If you think these photos belong to you, you can contact us at CBC News Vancouver at cbc.ca. Johanna Wegg staff is on assignment tonight. Kuljeet Kaila is here. Kuljeet, we saw Saurabh at the ferry terminal. Winds were very strong. What are we expecting to come?
Now, that wind warning along the coast and for part of Vancouver Island is just one of the many warnings that we have on the board for us today. We'll get to those details in just a bit. We've got a system moving in that started earlier today, a little bit later than what we expected, but it's going to stay with us for the weekend. Lots of rain on the way for the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island, as well as along the coast. Now, this is where it started at 6 p.m. Friday for us, and then there's another wave coming in for Monday. This is the totals breakdown that we're going to see. On the weekend, about 20 millimeters of rain for Saturday at higher elevations, 15 for Vancouver, and then Sunday we're going to get a bit of a break, 70% chance of rain. Then it comes back on Monday, 25 to 40 millimeters, and another 25 to 30 on Tuesday, and hopefully a bit of a break on Wednesday. And then after that, we might see some sunshine. Tomorrow's forecast across the province, a mix of sun and cloud for Prince George. They're finally getting a break from all that snow that they had. A mix of rain and wind for Prince Rupert. Along the coast, that wind is going to continue for tomorrow. A little bit of snow and 5 degrees for Williams Lake. Same story over in Cranbrook as well. They'll see a little bit of sun with that snow. Our sunset was at 5:12 under rainy skies. We'll wake up to more rain tomorrow, and that rain will continue for Saturday. About 15 millimeters expected tomorrow. I'll have the full 7-day forecast coming up. Anita?
I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Kuljeet. Well, North Vancouver's very own Connor Bedard has enthralled the hockey world. The 17-year-old has won 2 World Junior golds with Team Canada, and he's poised to be the #1 pick in this year's NHL draft. But as far as Bedard is concerned, he's just one of the guys on the ice in Regina right now. Sam Sampson has more on what this hockey star's future could hold and how he's focused on the now.
Practice makes perfect.
Slides it again. Bedard clocks right in.
At 17 years old, Connor Bedard's highlight reel resembles pro players' dreams. MVP of this year's World Juniors, breaking multiple tournament records. winning gold with Team Canada in Canada.
I'm not trying to, look too far ahead and anything, and kind of take it day by day is what I try to do for sure.
Bedard, originally from North Vancouver, is focused on the now in Regina, finishing what could be his last junior hockey season.
You never know what the future holds for, whether, for me, I'm back next year or not, and it's something that I'm not thinking about that. It's kind of, I don't know if I would like to have that mentality of, this is the last little bit.
But Bedard may be the only person not analyzing his future.
At the current stage, it is a very wide gap between Bedard and the next best player.
At this year's NHL draft, analysts see the teen as the #1 pick overall.
He's a guy who I think will be among the league's leading scorers at some point in his career.
At the junior level, there is what they call the Bedard effect. Officials say home and road games sell out to see him. It's an opportunity to watch Bedard before he hits the big league.
It's a good role model for teamwork, for team playing.
I think he's gonna play exceedingly awesome.
He's viral. I mean, he's everywhere. You see a game, it's Connor. Everywhere's Connor.
Though the rest of Canada is already there, Bedard seems to struggle seeing himself as a star.
For me, I still gotta prove myself and try to play my best and try to improve every day.
The day isn't so far off, though, when people here will say, "Remember when Bedard played for the Pats?" Sam Sampson, CBC News, Regina.
Black History Month is a time to honor Black Canadians and their communities, from their pursuit of equity and justice to celebrating cultural richness. But we often don't hear about the experiences of those of the Afro-Indigenous community. The CBC's Angela Starrett spoke to 3 Black Indigenous women to talk about the intertwining of their identities and what this month means to them.
This is my mom here, and this is my grandfather, and they're both Black Native.
3 years ago, Tierra Cash moved from the U.S. to Coquitlam to pursue a PhD. Her great-grandmother on her mother's side was Chata and Chalagi, also known as Choctaw and Cherokee. Her great-grandfather on her mother's side was also Chata. They were both also Black. But around the 1830s, the U.S.'s one-drop rule meant
if you had any percentage of Black within you, or you had Black relatives, you were reclassified. So you were either reclassified as white or you were reclassified as Black.
The one-drop rule was outlawed in 1967, but its ripple effects have been far-reaching.
I always knew I was Indigenous growing up, but it's only been in the last, half decade that I've really been able to really find community and to really be able to do ceremony and really be able to have conversations around this.
And despite belonging to a Black community, Cash says her exact African ancestry has been difficult to locate because of a lack of documentation during forced migration through enslavement.
One of the hard things about being Black American is that you don't really have much information on where your people come from. You know that there was a stealing that happened of your ancestors from West Africa. And if you're lucky, you can trace 1 or 2 of those ancestors back to Africa. I was able to trace one of them.
For generations, her ancestors have been living in Mississippi, North Carolina, and Tennessee.
Most of what I know about being Black is being Black American. It's generations and generations and generations of people who have been in America since the beginning of, its founding.
While the identities of Black and Indigenous people have been systemically erased, for Tiara and others, those lineages are also defined by resilience, resistance, and reclamation.
This is actually my first time seeing it in person.
It's a sentiment illustrated in this Vancouver mural by Squamish and Namgis artist James Harry and Japanese Trinidadian Lauren Brevner.
This is something 5-year-old me would have loved to see.
A representation she carries in her body.
I'm so proud of my ancestors. I have beautiful, strong Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan ancestors who advocated for me, before they even knew I existed.
Her mother survived day school, and her dad, who was Black from Texas, also survived oppressive and violent government policies of the day.
My dad went to segregated schools, and I know my grandmother also grew up in Jim Crow South and had experienced severe racism and segregation.
She says both sides fought for social justice so she can live safely in the world today. It's something Taylor McCarthy sees too.
My ancestors who fought hard and never gave up.
McCarthy was raised in Tacoma, Washington by her late father, who was Black from Charlotte, North Carolina. At 18, McCarthy moved to the Capilano Reserve with her Squamish mother.
For the reason that we have our songs and dances, for the reasons that I can go to a restaurant as a Black woman, as a Black person in general, I can have a job, and I can be in the military. I have a bachelor's degree. It's because of all of my ancestors on both my Black and my Native side.
This Black History Month, she has a message for Black and Indigenous people.
As a Black and Native person, like, you're standing on the shoulders of your ancestors who have always been there for you.
Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
Backtracking on a controversial amendment to the Liberals' gun control bill. After the break, why supporters of the law and critics are united. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. A PEI rideshare app is doing better than its founders expected. The app is called Kari. It's similar to Uber, where people can book a ride online, and it comes at a time when the province is dealing with a shortage of taxis. Laura Meter has more.
You might not notice this driver picking up a passenger. The ride was booked through a company called Kari through an app on a phone.
Go to the one Capote Road, right?
Yep. Yeah. Drivers have been very busy lately.
We're doing about 1,500 to 1,800 rides every week.
The people who created the PEI rideshare service say they didn't expect the passenger numbers they're seeing now.
I didn't think, 2 years ago that we would be even close to where we are at now with respect to how many people we have using the service, but people are noticing and people are recognizing it and using the app. And
the company's numbers are growing at the same time there's a shortage of taxis. It's an issue for the Charlottetown Airport, the tourism industry, and locals too. This taxi business says it's not concerned about competition, but it needs drivers and is hoping government will help attract them.
Well, I'm hoping I can get some kind of response from transportation or tourism to get some help with, get them subsidized somehow.
Joe Corrigan says the cost of insurance is keeping drivers away. The Tourism Industry Association says people need to be able to travel around the province, so they need options like Kari.
COVID really impacted our taxi service, our transportation, just in general. So having that app and having that service like Kari has become very, very important for us on Prince Edward Island.
The Charlottetown Airport used to have more than 100 taxis coming here. There is less than half that now. It has put up signs to let passengers know about the rideshare app.
I do believe it's needed. I believe it's needed because it's an alternative. I believe it's needed because it's sort of an expectation now of passengers when they travel.
Kari currently operates in the areas around Charlottetown, Stratford, and Cornwall, and it's hoping to expand into other island communities and New Brunswick as well. Laura Meter, CBC News, Charlottetown.
The federal Liberals have withdrawn a controversial amendment to their gun control bill that provoked widespread opposition. The change widened the definition of assault-style weapons to include some currently used as hunting rifles. And as David Cochrane explains, both supporters and critics of tighter gun laws are united on one thing. This was a political misstep.
This committee has been the main battleground in the latest fight over guns. Now the Liberals have waved the white flag.
It is not our intention, as I noted, to move Amendment G46.
With those words, the Liberals scrap controversial gun amendments, which critics argued unfairly targeted hunters.
We have seen the most underhanded amendment in the largest hunting rifle ban in Canadian history, attempted in the most underhanded way.
The Liberals tried to push through more than 300 pages of surprise amendments. The goal was to ban a long list of long guns that included many popular hunting rifles. This was done while the committee was discussing a handgun ban and without following the normal process for studying legislation.
You know, I don't know what reasoning the Liberals ultimately had for these amendments, but I definitely will underline the incompetence part of it.
The outcry was swift, the backtracking inevitable, the gloating immediate.
Today's humiliating climb down that we have forced Trudeau to make is a temporary pause in his plan to ban hunting rifles. He is doing this because he got caught.
There's been a ton of reflection, and there will be more of it. But I am committed to charting out a course forward.
The minister who drove this legislation is now in full reverse, trying to clean up this mess and make good on an election promise.
The right focus, and the focus of the government, is to target those guns which have been used in mass killings, and obviously to respect hunting and trapping and First Nations traditions, which is part of the fabric of the Canadian identity.
As the Liberals scramble, survivors of horrific gun violence continue to hope for a solution.
We hope it will be strong for all Canadians. And I repeat it, our fight is not against hunters. Our fight is against assault-style weapons for our safety.
That was David Cochrane reporting for us tonight. Now, the reversal of the Liberal government on these amendments is being called a victory for gun rights groups. For Insight, I'm joined live by Rod Giltaca. He's the CEO of the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights. Rod, why is this so important for your group and for gun owners, your side of the fight?
Well, the change was really just two amendments, which were G4 and G46, that were withdrawn by the Liberals from Bill C-21. But those two amendments by themselves would result in the banning of probably half of the firearms in circulation in Canada. And of course, that's not an appropriate response to firearm-related violence in urban centers.
You know, we just heard there that survivors of gun violence still want changes to happen. They are worried about safety. What do you say to them? What do you propose so that they feel safe?
Well, we don't want to feel safe. We want to be safe, and I think the way that people miss the mark in this is our efforts should be aimed at dealing with violence in our society. You know, back in 2014, Canada was a lot safer place to live than it is today, and there were less firearm regulation. So firearm regulation hasn't had a direct correlation with safety in all instances. So firearms should be regulated. They can be dangerous in the wrong hands, but we have to be smart about it. It can't be a political effort.
So what do you propose that the government do now?
Well, the government has a lot of work to do. They have some problems with prolific offenders. They have some bail reform issues that they need to deal with. And they have violence in our society. Why are people becoming violent? And what can we do to tackle those root causes? And victims, a lot of victims groups, and especially groups that are involved in gang interdiction, they all say the same thing. We're not doing the work that we need to in at-risk communities. And instead, we are going all in on gun bans and political efforts.
Rod Giltaca is the CEO of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
A huge, high-altitude Chinese balloon sailing across the U.S. prompts the Secretary of State to abruptly cancel a high-stakes trip to Beijing. That's next.
the Hotel Europe in its heyday, the turn of the century. The wedge-shaped hotel was built by Angelo Calori in 1908. For years, Calori's pride and joy was considered the best commercial building in the core of a young Vancouver. But when the center of the city moved further west, the Hotel Europe became a dingy, skid road rooming house, home to some of Vancouver's least desirable tenants. In the late 60s, the face of Gastown changed again in a great renewal, and the Europe once again became the big eye-catcher. But there were still no major renovations inside the building, and it remained a far cry from the classy hotel built half a century before. Finally, last summer, Vancouver City Council voted to shut the Europe down. The sad condition of the hotel, the subject of a story by CBC reporter John Daly and cameraman Ross Kenward. They were thrown out by the manager.
I'm going to break everything. Get up.
The closure forced 20 tenants to find new homes.
To me, it was just my little hole in the wall, my little burrow, my little nest, so to speak, and that's all.
And the end of a dream for then-owner Suzanne Van Edgemont.
I just always wanted to see it done into a turn-of-a-century hotel. I love architectural and old buildings, and I like to see them preserved.
But what appeared to be a grim twist of fate for the landmark building has turned into its salvation. 2 government agencies have bought the Europe for $1.35 million. In 2 weeks, $2 million of renovations will begin to turn the shabby, tired old hotel into a comfortable and pleasant home for both low and average income families. It's a huge job, as observed by Howard Addison, the contractor, and John Gordon, coordinator of the operation. First, a tour of the downstairs, what used to be the hotel's main attraction, the beer parlor.
I think it'll lend itself to an excellent retailing, merchandising enterprise.
The rooms along this corridor are dismally run down, many strewn with the relics of years and of tenants gone by.
Generally, it'll have a repaint, and over here, there's going to be a new kitchen area put in. This is going to be the living room. Of course, it'll be recarpeted, and it'll be modestly furnished.
What about the graffiti on the walls? You got some pretty wild graffiti.
Sure.
We'll just cover them up.
You don't think your new tenants would enjoy it?
I don't think so. I don't think they'd appreciate it one bit.
It won't be a luxury development by any means, but it'll be very affordable, and it'll be very pleasant to live in.
An appropriate 9 months from now, the new, improved Hotel Europe opens her doors to her new tenants. Deborah Sweeney, CBC News, Vancouver.
Unemployment in the U.S. has plunged to its lowest level in more than 50 years. The American economy added a stunning 517,000 jobs in January. That's nearly 3 times what was expected. The increase comes even as the U.S. Central Bank continues to raise interest rates in an effort to cool the economy and fight inflation. It points to a resilient labor market despite forecasts of a looming recession. There are concerns the demand for workers is pushing up wages, which can contribute to inflation. Unemployment in the U.S. now stands at 3.4%, its lowest level since 1969. Well, to help try to tackle our country's affordable housing crunch, some Canadian cities are looking to convert empty office space into residential apartments. Now, it may seem like a logical fix to the vacancy imbalance, but it's not a perfect solution. Anis Haidari explains why.
After sitting empty for 10 years, this office building is full of workers again.
That's a corner suite.
But there are no cubicles this time around. They're converting the place into apartments.
Our goal is to make sure that when a potential tenant approaches or a potential customer comes and looks at this building, they can't recognize that this was once an office tower.
Across North America, downtown office buildings are increasingly empty, and the move to work from home hasn't helped. In Calgary alone, more than a quarter of office spaces are vacant, but turning them into homes is a challenge.
An older office tower like this one wouldn't have had a balcony back then, but carving them out of the wall is a part of this project.
And with a subsidy from the city of Calgary, it makes sense to keep this building standing instead of tearing it down and starting over.
When it comes to the cost itself, it still works out to be a little bit cheaper than, let's say, when you're building a brand new tower, with the city, especially with the city's support.
So it's not all about cost.
Architects are getting calls to make these conversions happen elsewhere, so a major firm has developed software to automatically assess if a building is worth converting or demolishing.
So what we've seen through the scoring that we've done is that between 25 and 30% of the buildings that are currently relatively vacant can be converted. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but it's actually billions of square feet across the US and Canada.
This won't completely solve the problem for cities with too much empty office space, because problems can hide inside the walls.
Depending on the whole scale that you're looking at.
Commercial real estate experts say renovation surprises drive up costs.
It's easier sometimes to just demolish it and start from scratch because the replacement costs and the conversion costs are around the same number.
And we're currently working on installing old plumbing stacks.
With new plumbing and new balconies, this project could bring some life back to a long-deserted downtown corner. Anis Hedari, CBC News, Toronto.
China has expressed regret for the flight of a balloon over the U.S. yesterday. But despite its assurances, the American Secretary of State has postponed his upcoming visit to China in response. The CBC's Makta Gebrselassie reports.
The balloon is still in the sky, and the U.S. is rejecting the explanation from China on why it's there. China's foreign ministry says it's a civilian balloon used for weather-related research that was taken off track by the wind. But the Pentagon isn't buying that.
We are aware of the PRC's statement. However, the fact is we know that it's a surveillance balloon, and I'm not going to be able to be more specific than that. We do know that the balloon has violated U.S. airspace and international law, which is unacceptable. And so we've conveyed this directly to the PRC at multiple levels.
U.S. officials say the balloon traveled across part of Alaska, then Canada, before heading south. It was seen hovering over Montana. Officials say they reacted quickly to protect against the collection of information, and that there was no harm to the public or military. Ottawa also says it's monitoring the incident and has summoned China's ambassador.
We're monitoring it very closely. The minister insisted that the Chinese ambassador be called in to explain the situation from their point of view, and we will continue to stand up for Canadians' rights all the time in any issue that stands with China.
Meanwhile, the U.S. weighs its options on how to respond. It did respond in one way. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to Beijing has been postponed. This would have been the first visit from a top U.S. official in years. Media outlets say he pressed pause on the trip because he doesn't want this balloon controversy to take over his meetings with Chinese officials. Makta Gebrselassie, CBC News, Washington.
More European military help is heading to Ukraine. Spain is sending 20 armored personnel carriers and is promising as many as 4 Leopard battle tanks. As Abby Kugdasin reports, it comes as top European Union officials visited Ukraine for a high-profile summit.
Good morning. Good morning.
An historic summit in Kyiv, flanked by EU Council President Charles Michel and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said,
"Здавати Бахмут ніхто не буде."
They will not give away the city of Bakhmut, the site of a bloody battle in the east. He's also demanded further sanctions on Russia. The EU is working on its 10th package. Von der Leyen has confirmed it will target components used in Russian drones. EU membership is another major topic at this summit. Kyiv applied within days of being invaded last year and is hoping to be in the bloc as soon as possible.
The future of Ukraine is within the European Union. The Ukrainian people, you have made a clear choice for freedom, for democracy. And we in the EU, we have also made a clear decision. Your future is with us in our common European Union. Your destiny is our destiny.
But there are some concerns in Brussels that such assurances can be misleading. EU accession is often a lengthy process of negotiations and reforms. There's a long checklist of entry requirements, including political and economic stability. It's taken some countries years.
So the accession process is a merits-based process.
In other words, there are no rigid timelines. It started with 6 member states. Today we are 27. So there are 21 different stories of accession negotiations to the European Union. And this shows that there is not one size fits all, but it depends a lot on the candidate country.
The bloc has also never before accepted a country at war. Abby Cuevas in CBC News, London.
Prince Edward Island is getting ready to host the Canada Winter Games, and part of those preparations include making sure they're stocked up with snow. We'll find out why after the break. February is Black History Month, and throughout this month, we are highlighting the voices of prominent Black musicians and performers, hearing about music they love and how it moves them. Each Saturday this month on CBC Radio 1, they'll be sharing their favorites, playing everything from gospel to hip-hop to Afrofuturism. First up, singer Don Pemberton talking about soul.
My name is Dawn Pemberton. I am a singer, performer, actor, radio host, and choir director. Revelations is a celebration of Black music. I am one of 4 hosts, and I will be playing some great, inspiring music all about soul. Soul music is varied and vast, just like human beings are. I think soul music is a medicine. I think all music created by Black people is a medicine because we had to endure a lot of oppression and violence, and I think we had to be resourceful and find ways to create joy and healing in our lives. One of my all-time favorite songs, and the song that speaks to me from this collection of songs that I picked, is called Rise by Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles.
All my people singing, we gon' rise.
It's just, when I press play, the beat right away gets me grooving, gets my body engaged, and it's really hopeful. It's really this song all about persevering and rising to the top. Another song that I'm really looking forward to sharing with listeners is a song called Fight For Me by a young artist named Bukola.
I've got to fight this fight on my own. No one can fight it for me.
She is a fantastic singer, guitar player, songwriter. I'm just really impressed by, her vision and her talent, and I just really think more people need to hear her. I really have to say, I really love Say Something.
You better beg, plead. Just tell me that you need me. Oh, so you gotta say something.
It's kind of like an anthem for speaking your mind and really speaking your truth and my truth. And it feels good to sing. When I sing it, I feel really powerful, and I like to ignite people. I think I want people in my audience, Black people in my audiences, to feel like they are seen. I want them to know that I see them, I see you. You're important, you are special, you are magical, you can take up space, you deserve to be here, and there is space for you in this world. So grab it, claim it.
Over the next 4 weeks, Revelations is special radio programming on the power and joy of Black music. Episodes air 5 p.m. Saturday nights on CBC Radio 1. Dawn Pemberton, who you just met there, hosts tomorrow with 2 hours dedicated to soul music. Well, Kuljeet, I think tonight is the perfect night to stay in and listen to some good soul music, isn't it, with all this wind?
Tonight, possibly the entire weekend, and maybe into early. Get all the music in that you can. Lots of warnings across the province, wintry weather, lots of wind, lots of snow as well. A bunch of warnings. We'll start off in the Peace River region up towards Mackenzie, BC, about 30 centimeters of rain, rather snow overnight into Saturday morning. And we had windy conditions for East Vancouver Island, up to 90 kilometers an hour. Same situation for the Sunshine Coast, and for the Fraser Canyon, driving conditions along the Coquihalla Highway have an alert to it. 15 centimeters of snow expected through there. And of course, extra snow means we've got to take a look at the avalanche warning, which did increase today from considerable to high for most of the Cariboo region, heading down towards Kamloops and Kelowna as well. And of course, for the North Coast, some avalanche warnings up there as well. Current conditions across the country, lots of winter temperatures there. With the wind chill, we're looking at minus 31 in Winnipeg, minus 41 for both Ottawa and Montreal. So if that makes you feel a little bit better about all the rain that's coming, I hope that helps. The rain on Saturday and Sunday, up to 10 to 15 millimeters in Vancouver. More on Monday as we kick off the week. Temperatures holding steady between 6 and 9 degrees. On Wednesday, we might get a bit of a break, 60% chance of rain there. And by Thursday and Friday, a mix of sun and cloud. That's actually going to stick around for a while, so we will see a bit of a dry stretch. Anita?
Thanks, Kuljeet.
You're welcome.
Well, Prince Edward Island is getting ready to welcome thousands of athletes from across the country for the Canada Winter Games. It's the first time PEI has played host since the early 1990s. And along with all the preparations you might expect, as Kate McKenna explains, there's one that will probably come as a surprise.
Check out these snowy conditions. Perfect ahead of the Canada Winter Games. Just one catch. They're man-made.
The fall and the winter thus far has been extremely mild, but we're just kind of being patient with the process, knowing that it's PEI and it's February, that we are going to eventually get snow.
It has been a nail-biter for organizers of the Games. Man-made or natural, they need snow.
It could all melt. You know, we do watch the forecast daily or semi-daily just to see where we're trending.
So in the meantime, every cold day these snow cannons run. They were purchased just for the Games.
Well, the process has been going on really since December, and they've been stockpiling man-made snow any time that Mother Nature has given us the temperatures for them to make snow.
Organizers say they're not sure exactly how much snow they have made, but they know it's the most they've ever made, and by a lot.
The stakes are high. Thousands of athletes are traveling to the island. Some are already here, testing out courses they hope won't melt away.
Seems high right here.
The course's architect preaches patience and faith.
I've been building courses all over the country for the last 20 years. You just got to have faith that Mother Nature, it is Canada, winter will come.
So now they wait. The ski hill is covered and it's darn cold outside. But temperatures need to stay sub-zero. If a big melt comes, some PEI events could be moved off-island.
We have had contingency plans for all of our venues, and some of that may have involved kind of moving things to different venues, possibly in New Brunswick, but based on the amount of snow we've been able to make in the last 7 days, we're pretty confident knowing that we're going to be able to host.
The countdown is on until February 18th, as some islanders do the unusual. Hope it stays cold and pray for more snow. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Brookvale, Prince Edward Island.
Saving lumber from the wood chipper and putting it into the hands of some serious shredders. A Calgary guitar maker is creating instruments from materials bound for the trash.
Some of them were so exciting to teach. You know, they were anxious to learn more.
Even at 99 years old, it's clear the memories and the pride Millie Burgess has for her career hasn't waned.
I'll meet people for the first time and they would say, "Oh, how many children do you have?" And I said, 20, and they just about dropped. They couldn't believe, 20? What are you talking about? I said, "Oh, I'm a teacher."
Burgess's teaching career in Toronto spanned 35 years. She's believed to be among the first black teachers in Canada, landing her first job in the late 50s.
Toronto didn't have that many black people. At first, it was kind of scary, but you know, I got over that.
She says at that time, many of the children were European immigrants, which meant she was also tasked with teaching them how to speak English.
Each weekend, I would spend about, I say 3 hours, 4 hours I used to spend setting up my schedule for the week. And my husband would say, "Let's go to the movies." And I said, "I can't go, I've got to get this done for this." And he said, "You only work 5 days a week, not 7.
But despite that passion and dedication she had for the job, she still experienced moments like this.
And he said, I'm here to talk to the teacher. Where is the teacher?" So I said, "I am the teacher." He said, You? You are the teacher?" He went to the office and he said to the principal, "Do you have any persons in your grade 1 classroom that's white? Because I don't want my child being taught by a black teacher."
Burgess is now celebrated by other black educators for opening doors for others, including members of her own family.
She's sort of like the leader, the trailblazer for the family. So my mother and 2 of my aunties were like the first black teachers in Toronto Board of Education. So that's kind of a cool legacy.
And she knew that if she had a black child in her class, she was modeling for that black child that this was a profession that they for sure could consider following. And it was also teaching everyone that if you just see us and learn from us, be with us, you'll see that we're all really just the same.
When asked what advice she'd give to young people deciding on a career, the award-winning teacher repeated what her mother always told her.
Go to school and learn as much education that you can. Take in everything you can.
Her legacy is sure to continue well beyond her years in the classroom. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 2nd, join CBC Vancouver's Michelle Elliott and a panel of top UBC experts at the UBC Med Talks, a hybrid event on the topic of healthy aging. Register at alumni.ubc.ca and never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
This week on CBC's Our Vancouver, host Gloria Makarenko speaks to Annie Nguyen, who didn't realize just how special her mom's homemade chili oil was growing up. Now she's learned a lot of people want to put it on pretty much anything.
Just cracker first or hummus? You're going to put it, you want me to dip?
On top of the hummus, yes.
So you could just serve that as well. So can I just dip in there? Is that what you do?
Just something simple like that. It's really delicious.
Thank you. This is mild, garlicky, but I'm getting the crispiness of the garlic slices as well.
Right. How is the heat level?
No, that's perfect for me.
Okay.
That's perfect. So that's the mild one. Wow. Okay.
You can catch Our Vancouver on Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday at noon, and Monday at 11 a.m. right here on CBC Television. All right, to our final story tonight. Wood starts out in the forest, it goes into construction and furniture, and eventually it winds up in the landfill. But a man in Calgary is giving old wood a brand new career.
Old furniture makes fantastic guitar necks. You literally cannot find these things anywhere. I'm pretty much the only guy in Western Canada that's doing what I'm doing. It would be kind of nice. I build musical instruments, stringed instruments out of reclaimed wood and materials, furniture, barn wood, pallet wood, pretty much any reclaimed material that I can find that's suitable for making stringed instruments. A lot of it is legacy wood from people's farms and homesteads and places like that. You know, a piece of furniture that the family owned, maybe grandparents or great-grandparents owned. A piano that was in the family while you were growing up. This particular guitar, at the beginning of the pandemic, a gentleman from New Brunswick saw me online, and he had sent me some 2x4s from an old building that they had, and he asked me if I could build him an instrument out of it. That's how it turned out. Old wood has kind of a soul to it. Depending on the type of wood, it gives you a very rich and full sound. Very old wood is stable. It's done all its drying and twisting and moving, so when you build an instrument out of it, it tends to be pretty stable, as opposed to new wood, which you don't know what the moisture levels and stuff are. The most difficult part about building the guitar is making the neck. The best part of it is watching guys play them and enjoy them and making them sound incredible. Roughly 650-ish. I kind of lost track. I was counting them for a while, and now I've lost track. When I was a kid, I grew up in northern Alberta on a ranch out there. I wanted a guitar so bad, and I ordered one through the Eaton's catalog, and it took 6 months for it to come. It was just kind of a cheap guitar because it's all I could afford. Today, I'm building incredible instruments, and I can build anything I want. I don't have to wait for it. I don't have to order it. I can build it myself with my own hands.
Some beautiful pieces there, definitely some great artwork. Thank you for being with us all week on CBC Vancouver News. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. That's it for our show on this Friday, February 3rd.